bị With new and diverse partnerships, the world can achieve sustainable development. Countries have already committed to making this happen through the Sustainable Development Goals. Each goal targets a specific area that needs improving, and they are all connected. But achieving the goals requires resources. $5 to $7 trillion needs to be raised each year. And countries are figuring out how to mobilize and use that money. The public sector is taking a whole-of-government approach, working across different ministries and actors. And the private sector is already contributing significantly to the SDGs. But more needs to be done. There can be challenges in aligning different sources of finance with the SDGs. So UNDP is helping to bring together public and private money behind sustainable development. We use 4 different approaches to do this. We map out the landscape and bring various actors to discuss targeted solutions. We advise on ways to remove blockages, build links, and redirect flows to sustainable development objectives. We help countries mobilize more money and leverage private finance for the SDGs. Working with governments and businesses, we ensure efficient and transparent management of resources for maximum impact. To benefit people, to protect the planet, and to bring prosperity for all.
The CIIF, the Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals, the premier professional body for qualified Islamic finance practitioners. Since 1963, the modern era of Islamic finance has rapidly grown to become a complete financial system with a full suite of products and services. As Islamic finance worldwide continues to grow, global demand for qualified talents becomes increasingly critical. To address this need, Bank Negara Malaysia has formulated a series of initiatives to boost human capital development in Islamic finance, including the need for setting professional standards. In its Financial Sector Blueprint 2011 to 2020, BNM identified the Association of Chartered Islamic Finance Professionals, ACIFP, to set global quality standards for professional qualifications. To realize its mandate, the ACIFP has transformed into the CIIF as part of its plan to be the global reference point for Islamic finance professionals. The CIIF will establish a platform for shaping high-caliber talents by setting globally recognized standards in professional qualifications. Together with our codes of ethics and professional conduct, the CIIF aims to shape the development of each member towards attaining recognition and prestige as a chartered professional in Islamic finance. As a chartered professional in Islamic finance, any member of the CIIF is expected to be ethically grounded, technically proficient, and above all, professionally driven. Attributes derived from the CIIF's key professional values. In achieving its vision to become the premier professional standard-setting body for qualified talents, the CIIF will be focused on three key strategic thrusts: supporting professional development through continuing education, upskilling, and specialization; global outreach initiatives to forge international linkages, foster collaborations in talent development, strengthen the linkage between industry and academia, and promote cross-border mobility for professionals. Achieving industry recognition through the adoption of the industry-owned Islamic Finance Profession Charter. Recognition of the CIIF's members by global financial institutions, industry authorities, regulators, education and training providers as the key players driving the halal economy. Through the CIIF, professionals in Islamic finance will have a platform to access expanded opportunities to serve the global Islamic finance industry. Through the CIIF, the talent pool will receive a much-needed boost in quality professionals to cater for a dynamic and ever-evolving global Islamic finance industry. Professional talents, global opportunities, knowledge, integrity, service. The Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals.
Welcome to the ISDB Centre of Excellence e-Gateway. Here, the portal provides information on solutions facilitated by the Centre, initiatives being undertaken, latest news, and information on the Centre's strategic partners. The Centre of Excellence e-Gateway is a matchmaking platform designed specifically to support businesses and provide effective development solutions. It does this by matchmaking solution seekers with solution providers and investees with investors. The platform will provide global market expansion to 57 ISDB member countries, as well as investment opportunities. In the e-Gateway platform, users will be able to register and create profiles based on their needs, whether they're a solution provider, solution seeker, investee, investor, or donor, and enjoy the benefits provided on the portal. Registering as a solution provider will enable the user to showcase their development solutions and gain market access to 57 ISDB member countries while expanding their network globally. Solution seekers may explore the best practices, effective development solutions, and get connected with experienced institutions that can share their expertise to support the solution seeker's business. A registered investee will have the opportunity to pitch their project to attract potential investors for funding and investment. An investor will find opportunities to invest in promising projects showcased on the platform that require funding or investment. A registered donor will have the opportunity to collaborate with the ISDB in funding humanitarian projects and other development program initiatives led by the ISDB globally. Upon successful registration, a user will have their own space in the platform and may start developing networks with other users within the e-Gateway community. Get in touch with the ISDB Center of Excellence today.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang berbahagia Datuk Syed Zaid Alba, the Executive Chairman of Securities Commission in Malaysia. Datuk Zainal Izlan Zainal Abidin, the Deputy Chief Executive of Securities Commission Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Datuk Sheikh Abdul Rashid bin Abdul Ghafur, the Deputy Governor of Bank Negara Malaysia. Respected scholars and industry experts, as well as our dear participants. Welcome to the Islamic Finance International Conference, connecting the dots, harnessing Islamic finance to accelerate the achievement of the SDGs. Brought to you by the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, and in partnership with Securities Commission Malaysia, Islamic Banking and Finance Institute of Malaysia, IPFIM, Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals, CIIF, and the Islamic Development Bank Group, ISDB. My name is Aizuddin and I will be your MC for this event. And on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you for joining in. Now, if you're looking for a substantive, engaging dialogue showcasing the innovative vision and approaches to link Islamic finance and the SDGs, you're in the right place because that's what we're going to do in the next 2 days. We've had more than 500 people register for this event, so thank you very much for taking the time off your busy schedules to join us in these 2 days. We hope that this will be an exciting and beneficial event for all those involved, inshallah. As mentioned before, this conference is being organized by UNDP, a United Nations organization working in about 170 countries and territories worldwide, tasked with helping them reduce inequalities, eliminate poverty, and to achieve sustainable economic growth and human development. The UNDP Country Office for Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei Darussalam is proud to be able to bring you this conference as a means to achieve these goals. Now, before we kick things off, let me go over the agenda for today, shall we? Which will be appearing on the screen right now. So, we've just started. So right now we just going over my welcoming remarks. After this, we'll have the welcoming address by the Executive Chairman of Securities Commission Malaysia, Datuk Syed Zaid Alba, followed by the opening remarks by the UN Under Secretary General and Associate Administrator of UNDP, Ms. Usha Rao Monari. And then at about 3 p.m., we will have the first keynote address presented by Datuk Zainal Izlan Zainal Abidin, the Deputy Chief Executive of Securities Commission in Malaysia, and followed by the second keynote delivered by the Deputy Governor of Bank Negara Malaysia, Datuk Sheikh Abdul Rashid Abdul Ghafur. Following the keynote addresses, we will have the first session for today, which is entitled The New Frontiers for Islamic Social Finance, Waqaf, Zakat, and Sadaqah as Collective Impact Funds. And that session will be about for more than an hour, and followed by the closing remarks by Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, excuse me. So with that, thank you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to welcome to the screen Yang Berbahagia Datuk Syed Zaid Albar, the Executive Chairman of Securities Commission Malaysia. Datuk Syed is also a member of Bank Negara's Financial Stability Executive Commission, or FSEC, and prior to joining the SC, he has been an active law practitioner for more than 40 years, predominantly in the fields of corporate law, banking, and capital market in both conventional and Islamic finance. Ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the welcoming address for this event, please welcome Datuk Syed Zaid Alba.
Ms. Usha Rao Monari, UN Under Secretary General and Associate Administrator, UNDP, Mr. Muhammad Abida, Head Islamic Development Bank, Centre of Excellence, Kuala Lumpur, Mr. Yusri Yusof, Chief Executive Officer, Islamic Banking and Finance Institute, Malaysia, Dr. Azura Osman, Chief Executive Officer, Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals, distinguished delegates, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. Welcome to the SC UNDP International Conference on Islamic Finance. We are extremely honored to partner with the United Nations Development Programme. I hope our collaboration will pave the way for more strategic initiatives to advance the sustainable agenda and in particular the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs. The global economy, as we are all aware, is beginning to recover from the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, this recovery is not felt equally. Poorer countries are dealing with a deeper, longer-lasting economic damage that has increased global poverty and threatened to reverse progress on global goals. Against this background, we must explore all options to mitigate this impact and support recovery. The Islamic Capital Market, or ICM, can play a crucial role in helping us recover from the pandemic and provide avenues to achieve the SDGs. In fact, Malaysia, as an established ICM leader, is well placed to showcase the benefits of bringing together ESG and Sharia. Both Islamic finance and sustainable and responsible investments, or SRI, share positive principles and values such as social responsibility, inclusiveness, equitable sharing of risks, and shared societal benefits, among others. This, in essence, clearly demonstrates that ICM products and instruments to be a natural fit to support the SDGs and, of course, the overall sustainability. Globally, Islamic finance is projected to be $3.7 in 2024. Malaysia continues to lead the sukuk market, accounting for roughly 45% of global sukuk outstanding. It is also one of the top 3 jurisdictions for Islamic funds, accounting for over 29% of total global AUM. And as of January 2022, close to half of the 44 SRI funds registered domestically were Islamic. So as you can see, the ICM accounts for over 60% of Malaysia's total capital market. On sustainability, we have pioneered Green Sukuk and the Social Impact Sukuk through SC's SRI Sukuk framework. Maqasid al-Sharia, or the objectives of Sharia, emphasizes a holistic view of life in Islam which promotes the attainment of benefits and the prevention of harm for the people. This encompasses inclusion and facilitating investments for social good, which are also integral in the SDGs. In meeting the SDGs, Maqasid al-Sharia should be the foundation for all business transactions and activities. The SC looks forward to participating in more strategic thought leadership platforms to raise awareness of ICM's vast potential in meeting the Maqasid al-Sharia. Sukuk, for example, has far-reaching effects in achieving both social and green goals. Sukuk issued under SC's SRI Sukuk framework have financed a variety of green, social and sustainable projects which include quality education and affordable and clean energy. Islamic teachings clearly emphasize sustainability as a key social agenda. Combined with social finance, it can assist in creating employment, protecting livelihoods, ensuring greater equality, and alleviating poverty. With Islamic social finance instruments such as zakat, sadaqah, and waqf also promote inclusive and sustainable economic growth. This is important as a UNDP study found that less developed economies can outperform pre-COVID trajectories by investing in an SDG push. Malaysia has identified the Waqf segment as an innovative social development tool. Having led the way in facilitating the world's first Waqf IPO, the SC launched the Waqf Featured Fund Framework in 2020. This has undoubtedly broadened the range of innovative ICM products and provided investors access to socially impactful activities. We at the SC have also engaged with the Malaysian government to develop the National Waqf Master Plan to strengthen Waqf management and further develop Malaysia's Islamic economy. And looking ahead, impact investing is another growth avenue for ICM. By integrating impact assessments with Islamic social finance instruments, investors will be able to measure its payoffs and outcomes. This also aligns with Islam's views on reinvesting profits back to society. Ladies and gentlemen, another significant mega trend that can influence the pace of economic recovery is greater adoption of technological innovations. I believe the use of financial technology or fintech to advance the SDG will become increasingly important. Digital solutions improve market connectivity for issuers, investors, and intermediaries. More efficient and cost-effective market access will promote industry growth, including sustainable investment towards the SDG. This is evident in the rise of the various fintech solutions such as digital investment management, peer-to-peer financing, and equity crowdfunding. Today, these fintech solutions are able to offer Sharia-compliant options alongside conventional products. Last year, the SC and the UN Capital Development Fund launched FICRA. FICRA is an Islamic fintech accelerator program. The aim is to encourage startups with innovative solutions for Malaysia's ICM. Such collaborative platforms can catalyze novel ICM offerings as well as enhance accessibility and social finance integration. I therefore look forward to more intellectual discourse and discussions on how we can connect the dots and achieve greater convergence with the SDGs through Islamic finance. With that, I wish everyone a good and productive conference over the next 2 days. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dato' Said. Dear participants, to open the conference we would now like to invite the United Nations Under-Secretary General and Associate Administrator of UNDP, Ms. Usha Rao Monari. Ms. Rao Monari, has over 30 years of investment experience and has held several senior positions, including as a senior advisor to Blackstone's Infrastructure Group. She was also the CEO of Global Water Development Partners and also the director of the Sustainable Business Advisory Group at the International Finance Corporation, or IFC. which is a part of the World Bank Group. So without any further ado, Ms. Raumonari, the floor is now yours.
Datuk Syed Said Albar, Executive Chairman of the Securities Commission of Malaysia. Mr. Muhammad Abida, Head of the Islamic Development Bank's Centre of Excellence. Mr. Yusri Yusuf, CEO, Islamic Banking and Finance Institute, Malaysia. Dr. Azura Osman, CEO, Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege for UNDP and its partners to host this conference on the theme of connecting the dots, harnessing Islamic finance to accelerate progress towards the SDGs. This conference seeks to expand the discourse on how progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, can be accelerated by leveraging Islamic finance and Islamic social finance as important enablers, which, along with other financing, will be key to meet the ambition of the SDGs. Islamic finance and SDG-sensitive impact investing are both founded on similar, rigorous ethical and social criteria that emphasize inclusiveness and a deeper and more cooperative meaning of business-society relations. The alignment of the SDG financing agenda and Islamic finance presents a clear opportunity to attract capital from across the global financial system and enable the shift from billions to trillions needed to achieve the goals. The framework of the SDGs provides a win-win opportunity to the Islamic financial industry. 14% annually, the global Islamic finance market is growing rapidly, reaching by end 2021 a market size of $3.374 trillion. The global Islamic funds market has also grown by more than 300% over the last decade to reach $200 billion in assets under management. Instruments of Islamic finance are a natural fit also with our core commitment to leave no one behind. The shared value proposition is that this financing benefits those who need it most, those often left behind by progress. They also represent a source of finance from a more diverse base of subscription, namely from individuals and institutions not conventionally associated with the financing of development. It's also exciting to note the emergence of the Islamic fintech, already triggering innovations and promoting creativity that enhances financial inclusion and can leverage more funds through market transactions. In 2020 alone, Islamic fintech transactions volume within the zone of the Organization of Islamic Countries was estimated to be around $49 billion. While this represents about 0.7% of global fintech transactions, Islamic fintech is projected to grow to $128 billion by 2025 at a 21% CAGR. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, UNDP is scaling up efforts to engage countries on Islamic finance as a vital complement to the overall mobilization of financing for the SDGs. With its presence in over 170 countries, UNDP has a unique vantage in mobilizing Islamic finance organizations to join forces with conventional streams of financing the SDGs, and then also on monitoring, reporting, and communicating their overall impact on sustainable development. In 2016, together with the Islamic Development Bank, UNDP launched the Global Islamic Finance and Impact Investing Platform, aimed at strengthening Islamic finance and impact investing as leading enablers of the global thrust towards implementation towards the SDGs. This investment platform launched its Green Sukuk initiative in 2018 in collaboration with the Securities Commission of Malaysia and Islamic Corporation for the Development of the Private Sector of the Islamic Development Bank. To date, the initiative has provided technical assistance to Turkey, Uzbekistan, and Pakistan. Through a new technical assistance agreement between UNDP and ISDB, the initiative will expand its services this year to other countries that are members of the Organization for Islamic Cooperation. In Indonesia, UNDP has partnered with Basnas, the national zakat collection body, to apply zakat funds for the first time to local SDG projects, beginning with renewable energy projects in underserved communities. It's also collaborating with the National Waqf Board on SDGs and development of a digital platform for Waqf contributions. In Palestine, UNDP facilitates the mobilization of funds for SMEs through Islamic microfinance, while in Turkey, we're exploring new ways to blend Islamic finance with crowdfunding by leveraging blockchain technology. Here in Malaysia, together with local partners, we hope to build upon UNDP's ongoing efforts to support countries' key policy frameworks that are helping to advance sustainability. This includes its integrated national financing framework and the ecological fiscal transfer mechanisms. This comes on the back of many noteworthy achievements that Malaysia has already reached in driving SDG reinforcing investments. Last year, Malaysia issued a $1.3 billion sukuk, including an $800 million sustainability tranche, which was 6.4 times oversubscribed. The proceeds will reportedly be used to finance social and green projects aligned with the SDGs. The country's first digital sukuk, the 500 million ringgit sukuk Prihatin, was issued in 2021 to contribute towards the country's economic recovery efforts and post-recovery measures of the COVID-19 pandemic. Moody's latest Emerging Markets Issuance Monitor reports that Malaysia's share of the 2021 sukuk issuance market was 37%. This shows that from pioneering a sustainable and responsible investment sukuk framework in 2014 and the world's first green sukuk in 2017 and the value-based intermediation initiative driven by Bank Negara, Malaysia continues to lead the sukuk issuance market. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the world of Islamic finance dovetails with Agenda 2030. There's much we can do together to use this complementarity of purpose and resources to build forward better the momentum behind the decade of action for the SDGs. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Usha Raumonari, for those opening remarks. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the UNDP Islamic Finance International Conference has officially begun. I'm going to imagine the applause of 500 people in my head, inshallah. Right, dear participants, up next is the first keynote address to be delivered by Yang Berbahagia Dato' Zainal Islan Zainal Abidin, the Deputy Chief Executive of Securities Commission in Malaysia. With over 30 years of experience in the financial services industry, Dato' Zainal Islan provides direct oversight on SC's surveillance and supervision functions, as well as the People and Corporate Resources Division. He joined SC in 2011 as the Executive Director of Islamic Capital Market and was appointed the Managing Director for Development and Islamic Markets in 2016. Dato' Zainal Islan is currently the Chairman of Capital Markets Malaysia, an entity established by the Securities Commission to promote the Malaysian capital market, and a board member of the Securities Industry Development Corporation, which is SC's training and development arm. With that, ladies and gentlemen, Dato' Zainal Islan, over to you.
Ms. Usha Raumonari, UN Under-Secretary General and Associate Administrator of UNDP, Dato' Syed Zaid Albar, Executive Chairman, Securities Commission Malaysia, Mr. Muhammad Abida, Head, Islamic Development Bank Centre of Excellence, Kuala Lumpur, Mr. Yusri Yusof, Chief Executive Officer, Islamic Banking and Finance Institute Malaysia, Dr. Azura Othman, Chief Executive Officer, Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals, distinguished speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to start by extending my appreciation to our co-organizer of this conference, the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, for this strategic collaboration. It is apt that the main theme of this conference is on Islamic finance and sustainable development goals, being priority areas for both the UNDP and the SC. When the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, were adopted in 2015 by the United Nations, it was already recognized then that achievement of the goals would be very challenging, but nonetheless necessary. Today, 7 years on, with the last 2 years, as we know, being hit with the COVID-19 pandemic, the goals have become exceptionally more challenging to achieve, while the urgency has escalated. The COVID-19 pandemic has evolved from a major public health crisis to become a global economic crisis. The economic impact is enormous, with long-lasting repercussions for people, businesses, and governments. Although actions taken to restrict economic and social activities have helped to prevent greater loss of life, they have also resulted in loss of livelihoods and incomes, as well as serious social issues, the full extent of which is still unfolding. An OECD report in 2020 mentioned that COVID-19's impact on SDG financing needs in developing countries is expected to increase the financing gap by 70% to $4.2 trillion per annum post-pandemic. However, to put this substantial figure into context, plugging the financing gap would require the reallocation of only 1.1% of the global financial assets held by banks, institutional investors, and asset managers, which amount to $379 trillion into SDG-aligned economic activities. Therefore, as governments put in place the respective economic stimulus packages and recovery plans, there is opportunity to influence, encourage, or even drive such reallocation of financial assets to achieve a recovery that is both sustainable and inclusive. In other words, a recovery that creates opportunities for employment, income, and growth, and at the same time accelerate action towards medium and long-term sustainability goals. In pursuing this desired outcome, it is imperative to explore all possible means to initially counter the impact of the pandemic and subsequently restore the pathway towards the SDGs. In this regard, the potential of Islamic finance, particularly through the Islamic capital market, is tremendous in addressing the funding gap for the SDGs, especially given the inherent compatibility of the principles underlying both Islamic finance and sustainability. Harnessing Islamic finance and capital market instruments to broaden and diversify the funding options that can cater to the different needs and preferences of various stakeholders will facilitate a quicker rollout of initiatives towards achieving the SDGs. A stakeholder group that should naturally be receptive to such Sharia compliant solutions is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Countries. According to the Islamic Development Bank, the SDG financing gap for OIC countries amounted to about $1 trillion a year, making up 40% of the estimated global funding need of around $2.5 trillion a year, based on statements made in 2019, which was prior to the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. A study by the Statistical, Economic and Social Research and Training Center for Islamic Countries, or SESRIC, in 2020 highlighted that the overall impact and implications of the pandemic will significantly hinder the progress towards achieving the SDGs for the OIC countries. To the extent the hindrances relate to funding issues, the Islamic capital market can potentially provide solutions to alleviate some of these challenges. Nevertheless, the interest in embracing Sharia compliant solutions to fund SDG-aligned projects and initiatives has expanded beyond just the OIC countries. For instance, the UK government, via the HM Treasury, together with the UK Islamic Finance Council, is spearheading the Global Islamic Finance and UN SDGs Task Force to explore the role the Islamic finance industry can play in addressing the SDG funding gap and to better understand the commercial opportunities the SDGs present for the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Malaysian context, the role of Islamic finance and Islamic capital market in economic growth and development has been increasingly pronounced, especially over the past 2 decades, and is expected to remain so as the country charts its recovery path to build back better. Over the longer term, this role may expand further as Malaysia pursues its net zero GHG emission aspiration by 2050 as announced at COP26 last November. In respect of the capital market, the SC released in September last year the Capital Market Master Plan 3 or CMP3, which leverages on the strengths and advances of the Malaysian capital market to further harness its potential over the next 5 years. The CMP3 will serve as a strategic framework for the capital market's growth, taking into consideration the next phase of development that includes focusing on sustainable and responsible investment, or SRI, and the Islamic capital market, ICM, among others, to facilitate the transition to an economy that is sustainable and inclusive. Strategies in these areas will build upon the solid foundations established under the earlier master plans. Initiatives such as the SRI Sukuk Framework and the Islamic Fund and Wealth Management Blueprint, launched in 2014 and 2017 respectively, had been instrumental in charting Malaysia's positioning to be a regional center for Sharia-compliant SRI. To further reinforce and elevate the SRI agenda for the capital market, the SC issued the Sustainable and Responsible Investment Roadmap for the Malaysian capital market, or the SRI Roadmap, in 2019 to provide a strategic direction for developing a facilitative SRI ecosystem. The SRI Roadmap identifies 20 strategic recommendations to position the country as a regional SRI hub and strengthen the role of the capital market, including the Islamic capital market, in complementing national priorities to achieve global agendas, including the SDGs. Continuing from these initiatives, the CMP3 has laid out the pathway in expanding the reach of the Islamic capital market to the broader stakeholders of the economy. To support the Sustainable Development Agenda, this includes building and enabling ICM ecosystem for Islamic social finance. A significant development to drive the initial growth of the Islamic social finance segment whilst contributing to the objectives of the SRI roadmap was the launch of the Waqaf-featured fund framework in 2020 to facilitate the offering of Islamic funds with Waqaf features. This initiative aims to spur more innovative Sharia-compliant SRI fund products to be introduced in Malaysia and provide investors an opportunity to invest and concurrently contribute towards socially impactful activities that may also support the SDGs. At this juncture, please allow me to share some specific examples or solutions over the last few years that demonstrate how the Islamic capital market can help accelerate the achievement of the SDGs. Issuance of the inaugural SRI Sukuk, known as Sukuk Ihsan, by Khazanah in 2015 to fund the development of trust schools. This supports SDG 4 on quality education. The offering of Waqaf shares structured under a social enterprise model through an initial public offering by Lakin Central, a bus terminal operator, launched in 2017. This initiative focused on the social agenda to alleviate income disparities. Dividends from the Waqaf shares were utilized to subsidize rental rates on small shop lots for selected tenants, especially single mothers and lower income groups. This supports SDG 10 on reduced inequalities. Next, issuance of the world's first green sukuk in 2017, where the proceeds were utilized to finance a large-scale solar project. A number of other green sukuk were issued subsequently to fund various green and energy-related projects. These initiatives primarily support SDG 7 on affordable and clean energy, and also SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities for green building project. A combined issuance by Malaysia's National Mortgage Corporation, Cagamas, of its inaugural ASEAN Sustainability SRI Sukuk and Islamic Medium Term Notes, or IMTNs, in 2020, The proceeds seek to improve the home financing outreach of the community, as the Sukuk program is used to fund the purchase of eligible Islamic financing for affordable housing. At the same time, the proceeds from the IMTNs are channeled to fund Islamic house financing. This supports SDG 1 on no poverty and SDG 11. Issuance of the inaugural fund under the Waqaf Featured Fund framework. The Waqaf assets will be channeled to the following focus sectors: health, community, empowerment, and education. This supports multiple SDGs, including SDG 3, good health and well-being, SDG 4, quality education, and SDG 10, reduce inequalities. The Malaysian government has also issued sukuk over the past 2 years to support sustainability and social objectives. In 2021, Malaysia issued the world's first sovereign US dollar sustainability sukuk to support sustainable projects. The issuance reflects the government's commitment towards sustainable economic development. The sukuk proceeds encompass broad fund mobilization, where they are channeled for not only social causes but also green outcomes and projects aligned to the SDGs. Earlier in 2020, the government issued the first of its kind fully digital Sukuk Prihatin, initiated in response to the Malaysian public's interest to participate in the rebuilding of the country during the COVID-19 pandemic, including for social causes. The issuance was also a landmark transaction from the digital aspect, as the facility allowed the public and corporates to subscribe via online banking channels, making it seamless for Malaysians to contribute through digital modes in view of facilitating the country's recovery. There are also examples of the Islamic capital market's role at the international level. Aligned with SDG 3 on good health and well-being, issuance of social impact sukuk by the International Finance Facility for Immunization Company in 2014 demonstrated the ICM's viability to address a major social issue. The transaction, for which the World Bank acted as the treasury manager, is the world's first social impact sukuk, whereby the proceeds were utilized for children's immunization in the world's poorest countries. Another notable issuance is the Islamic Development Bank's inaugural Sustainability Sukuk to provide relief post-COVID-19 pandemic in its member countries. More specifically, the proceeds from the sustainability issuance are mobilized towards social projects with a focus on access to essential services and small and medium enterprises or SME financing and employment generation. Among others, the issuance supports SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, as the demonstration effects that contribute to the SDGs continue to be acknowledged within the Islamic capital market space, the SC remains committed to advance the sustainable agenda and promote the awareness that Islamic finance tools are naturally aligned with the SDGs. This is consistent with the CMP3, which aims to leverage on SRI and ICM pillars towards shaping a stakeholder economy by mobilizing more capital towards sustainable businesses. Innovations that include SRI Sukuk and Islamic social finance instruments such as Waqaf Featured Funds have demonstrated how the ICM facilitates the intermediation of capital formation for commercial purposes, while also contributing to positive outcomes for the society and environment. To facilitate greater impact to the socio-economic development in Malaysia, the SC will focus on exploring the ICM framework as a reference point and its products and services as funding sources to continually develop the Islamic social finance sector. As outlined in the SDGs, it is vital to alleviate hardship among the underprivileged population. The Islamic capital market is an avenue to support fund mobilization in this area through the Islamic wealth management and distribution system, including zakat, for which the potential to contribute towards SDG achievement has not been extensively developed yet. Moving forward, there are also opportunities for impact assessments to be integrated with Islamic social finance instruments. This will enable measurable impact investments in the areas of socio-economic development and promote economic well-being, ensuring that investors will be able to measure whether the capital invested has achieved its desired impact objectives. The impact investment segment holds much promise and potential for Islamic finance and the Islamic capital market, as according to International Finance Corporation, up to $2 trillion is being invested with a mandate to achieve positive impact. Investors' appetite for impact investments is substantially larger, however, amounting to an estimated $25 trillion or about 10% of global capital markets. In essence, it is imperative that the industry stakeholders collectively chart the next phase of strategic development for Islamic finance and Islamic capital market towards enabling a conducive ecosystem for sustainable initiatives. Market intermediaries, financial institutions, Sharia advisors, multilateral institutions, non-profit organizations, and others need to work collaboratively as well as with governments and regulators to build capacity and capability, facilitate innovation, develop practicable solutions, and establish effective knowledge-sharing channels. At the same time, greater adoption of digitization and technology will also broaden and accelerate the capacity for stakeholders to enhance the ecosystem. Structured platforms for collaboration will enable the Islamic finance industry to progress and provide the catalyst for emerging segments such as Islamic social finance and impact investment to thrive whilst achieving increased inclusivity. In addition, further development of Islamic finance and Islamic capital market towards closer alignment with the Maqasid al-Shariah, a concept which places value on advocating righteous behavior, moral conduct, and acts of goodness, will enhance its role and relevance in the global sustainability agenda. The international and domestic examples on the compatibility of Islamic finance principles with the SDGs have provided a pathway on how to harness Islamic capital market solutions in order to attain the global goals for the benefit of the sustainable agenda. However, in spite of international recognition of Islamic finance's potential role to meet social financing needs and SDG funding gaps, certain segments such as Waqf and Zakat remain underdeveloped and should be further harnessed in the immediate term to support the advancement of the SDGs. Similarly, the more developed Sukuk market should be deepened and broadened to be utilized for more diverse activities and projects that contribute to the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, 2030 is only 8 years away, and much more needs to be done to achieve the targets. It is therefore incumbent upon all relevant stakeholders to raise awareness and drive greater adoption of Islamic finance solutions which can fill some of the substantial funding gap for the SDGs, thus contributing to the common good of the world. On that note, I wish everyone a productive conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dato' Zainal Islan, for the first keynote address. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the second keynote address, it is an absolute honor for me to bring to the screen Yang Berbahagia Dato' Sheikh Abdul Rashid Abdul Ghafur, the Deputy Governor of Bank Negara Malaysia. Dato' Abdul Rashid is responsible in overseeing the central bank's banking, insurance and payments development functions, as well as Islamic banking and takaful development. He also oversees the bank's monetary and economic sector, which also includes the international relations and statistical services. Dato' Abdul Rashid, the floor is now yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon, Ms. Usha Rao Monari, UN Under-Secretary General and Associate Administrator of UNDP, Dato' Zaid Alba, Executive Chairman, Securities Commission Malaysia, distinguished guests. Let me express my gratitude to the United Nations Development Programme, firstly for inviting me to deliver the keynote address today, and secondly, for selecting Malaysia as the host for the inaugural Islamic Finance Thought Leadership Series. The theme, Connecting the Dots, Harnessing Islamic Finance to Accelerate SDGs Achievements, is a topic close to our heart. It also resonates very well with the vision and development priorities of Bank Negara Malaysia in the Financial Sector Blueprint, which we released just last month. In the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity. These words of the renowned Albert Einstein are indeed very apt. The COVID-19 pandemic offers a proverbial reset button for nations to rebuild the economy and society with greater resilience and preparedness. This means leveraging this moment towards building pathways for long-term sustainability and inclusive growth with the 17 SDGs as our guiding compass. This need is even pressing now with the 2030 SDG targets looming over the horizon and financing gap of USD 4.5 trillion per annum. I see Islamic finance having a major role in plugging this gap. Most, if not all, of the 17 SDGs are aligned with the objective of Sharia or Maqasid Sharia, making Islamic finance to naturally advance and spearhead sustainability goals. This is the case in Malaysia, where sustainability objectives are materialized through the adoption of value-based intermediation or VBI practices. For a few years now, the Islamic financial institutions have contributed significantly in pursuing sustainability efforts domestically. We also see many Islamic financial institutions helming sustainability efforts at their respective financial groups, both domestic and foreign. Collectively, the Islamic financial institutions in Malaysia have intermediated over 155.6 billion ringgit in VBI-aligned initiatives over the past 3 years. Being a mature system today, Islamic finance is poised to scale up value-based finance solutions and continue taking the lead to create greater impact to the environment, economy, and society. Allow me to share how we can make this a reality. First is by harnessing the power of digitalization. Technology may not be the silver bullet, but it holds massive potential to revolutionize and transform the way value is delivered in finance. Studies show that an estimated 70% of new value to be created in the economy over the next decade will be based on digitally enabled platforms, priming conditions for breakthrough innovation to perennial problems. I believe, with the right and responsible application, emerging technologies can amplify the impact of Islamic finance in meeting sustainability goals. For example, the infusion of big data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning allows better understanding of the varied and specified needs of the different segments, especially the unserved and underserved. This enables better customization of financial solutions and offerings and choice of Sharia contracts as Islamic finance institutions have greater understanding of the risk dimensions and hence more robust decisions. One example is the application of big data analytics on geospatial data to identify flood-prone areas and anticipate financing and protection needs of those in the area. It also enables Islamic financial institutions to better deliver the expectations of Sharia as digitization allows for greater transparency and traceability of the flows of funds within the system and with the customers. In supporting more vibrant digitalization of financial services, the bank will continue to foster enabling environment for innovation, such as enhancing pathways for digital innovations to test, learn, and exit. The upcoming refresh of our regulatory sandbox will provide a greater boost to and support industry players in bringing financial innovation safely to the market across different stages of the innovation cycle. We recognize that solutions development is not the only way to deliver impact. This leads me to my second point, embracing transformative change. A whole of organization effort to instill total change of institutional behavior and culture. What this entails is the need for leaders to cultivate a transformative mindset that puts positive impact first in every aspect of the financial institution, including strategy development and operations. One area that is primed for disruption is data. Shared data infrastructure can help minimize reporting costs, especially in sectors where data is scarce, a dilemma that constantly plagues SDG financiers. Having better access to data means we can develop better metrics to track things that matter, eliminating the threat of impact washing. Towards this end, the bank is working with industry players to explore enabling digital infrastructure for open data and to enhance impact-based disclosures. Thirdly, Islamic financial institutions should nurture the mindset of partnership. Having a supportive ecosystem as well as a wide network of trusted partners is key to bolster the effectiveness of value delivery. The IIT Card program is a good example. It is a blended finance program which we piloted with the Islamic financial institutions since 2020 that fuses social finance funds with microfinancing and structured education and training provided by a group of implementation partners such as the state Islamic religious councils, government agencies, and NGOs to empower low-income micro-entrepreneurs. Over the next few years, the bank intends to upscale the outreach and impact of IT Card as we mainstream social finance within the Malaysian financial system. I see merit to even scale this model at a global level to address financial inclusion matters at a larger scale, facilitated by complementary technologies. For example, establish a shared infrastructure that enables more efficient tracking and monitoring of the performance and impact of the program on the target segments. This would enable financial institutions to better intermediate social impact funds to deliver the SDGs. In conclusion, achieving the SDGs is a collective effort, one that requires a whole-of-nation approach. Each of us, be it the financial institutions, the customers, the regulators, the government and funds providers, play an important role in creating a better, safer, and sustainable future. Indeed, such collective effort is equally warranted across geographical borders and governments. In Malaysia, we recognize this. Therefore, I welcome individuals or organizations that are passionate about SDG to collaborate with Malaysia and partner with global organizations such as UNDP to co-develop areas mentioned by leveraging on Malaysia's strength to achieve SDG goals together. In addition, I would also like to invite such individuals and organizations to take part in the Royal Award for Islamic Finance Impact Challenge Prize 2022. This new initiative by Malaysia aims to reward innovative creations and solutions that strengthen the economic and social resilience of financially impacted communities globally through the application of Sharia principles. Applications are open until 25th March 2022. To close my speech, I wish you every success to this conference, and I trust the event will generate interesting conclusions and concrete actions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Rashid, for that insightful speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for your information, this conference is being recorded and also live streamed on UNDP Malaysia's Facebook page. The recording of this conference will then be available freely on this page as well. The link is available on the chat window right now. For your information, for the CIIF members who are attending this conference, you will gain CPD points just by registering and also tuning in. Please forward your Zoom registration to membership@ciif-global.org. This information is also available in the chat window below. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to maintain the audio quality and also to save time, please submit your written questions pertaining to the sessions or to the speaker in the Q&A section below. Please state your name or a name and organization and also the speaker that you wish to address the question to. The moderator of the session will then address the questions to the speakers at the end of the session. And to also enjoy the best experience for this conference, we suggest that you update your Zoom app on your laptop or on your device to the latest version. With that, let's get the first session underway, shall we? The first session is entitled New Frontiers for Islamic Social Finance, Waqaf, Zakat, and Sadaqah as Collective Impact Funds. We have with us today Professor Dr. Engku Rabia Adawiyah Engku Ali, the member of the Sharia Advisory Council of Securities Commission in Malaysia. Professor Dr. Amir Shaharuddin, he is the CEO of Yayasan Waqaf Malaysia, and Yusuf Atta Al-Sawadi, the Awqaf Investment Specialist for Islamic Finance Sector Development of ISDB. To take us through this session, we have Ms. Sharifatul Haniza Said Ali, the Executive Director of Islamic Capital Market Development at Securities Commission Malaysia, as the moderator. She has an extensive and varied experience over the last 30 years in the fields of investment analysis, portfolio management, equity trading, and unit trusts while serving in various organizations in Malaysia. With that, Ms. Haniza, over to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everyone. First and foremost, thank you to the MC for the kind introduction, following which I would like to thank the co-organizers of this conference, UNDP, for this strategic collaboration, and all other supporting partners, namely ISDB, IPFIM, and SIF, for the commitment and effort in organizing this event and inviting me to moderate an exciting conversation, no doubt with a panel lineup rich in experience and insight on this relevant topic today. Before I proceed, let me just outline the perspective for the session today. It will delve into the new frontiers for Islamic social finance, focusing on the verticals of Waqaf, Zakat, and Sadaqah as collective impact funds. During the 1 hour plus, the areas of conversation will touch on commercialization of Waqaf and sustainability, how Waqaf can improve sustainability, and I hope for that the panelists will be able to share their deep experience with regards to governance and efficient management of Waqaf assets. Given sufficient time, inshallah, the role of Islamic philanthropy in socio-economic development and shared experiences on global Waqaf, Zakat, and Sadaqah distribution will also be heard. But before we proceed further into that, allow me to begin by a few key points for context setting. Today, we know circa US 5 to 7 trillion is required every year to achieve the SDGs as agreed upon in 2015. And for that, a significant funding gap exists between available resources and funding requirements. In developing countries alone, the required investments for SDGs is at an estimated 2.5 to 3 trillion per year for food security, basic infrastructure, health, and education, among others. We also heard various statistics just now being shared by the previous keynote addressees. According to the IDB, the SDG financing gap for OIC countries amounts to about US 1 trillion a year. And that's about 40% of the estimated global funding need of around 2.5 trillion a year based on 2019. And this is prior to the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Islamic finance, and in particular Islamic social finance segment, has this capacity to mobilize funds to meet part of this gap and help achieve the 2030 SDG targets. We know Islamic social finance has long been instrumental in addressing socio-economic welfare, more than 1400 years. Today, as the economy evolves, Waqaf, Zakat, Sadaqah's embedment in Islamic finance products such as Sharia-compliant funds, equities, Sukuk has enabled greater impact whilst promoting financial inclusion. Estimates of the value of Waqaf assets in the world range from 100 billion to US 1 trillion, while global annual zakat contributions may reach US 600 billion, making these tools very much a potential source of sustainable funding. Islamic social finance, which is aligned to Maqasid al-Sharia, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals, has immense potential. We can address major challenges such as poverty, unemployment, lack of financing, and infrastructure development. The movement towards developing Islamic social finance is also in line with the teachings of Al-Quran and Hadith, which contains numerous textual evidences. The title Khalifa is bestowed on humans and is mentioned several times in the Al-Quran, and it gives great prominence on the important role of Khalifa on earth, which is to manage resource and protect public interests. And such amanah is also stressed by the Prophet, peace be unto him, where he says, the world is beautiful and verdant, and verily God the Exalted has made you his stewards, and he sees how you acquit yourselves. And you also heard earlier from SE's perspective in the Capital Market Master Plan 3 launched last year, the commitment is to promote greater impact to socio-economic development. As such, we continue to focus on initiatives to facilitate this developmental agenda, the SRI Sukuk framework in 2014, the release of the Wakaf Featured Fund framework in 2020. And you also heard earlier an area that we want to focus on, and we are hopeful to see greater traction, is impact investing. And SE Malaysia had started to engage the existing ecosystem through the Impact Investment Roundtable started in 2020. Whilst impact investing is still nascent in Malaysia, that roundtable was intended to deliberate the current practices in the current ecosystem and highlight the potential. Because impact investments can not only make a difference in shifting it a bit further, but also promote the Islamic social finance segment. Same thing with Islamic philanthropy. Much work has been done, and we are entering new stages of that. So to shed more light on this, I think this is a good segue for me now to introduce the panelists with us today, who will be able to share and continue the conversation. We have today Prof. Dr. Engku Rabia Adawiyah Engku Ali, whom I've had the pleasure of learning from during the many Sharia deliberations in the Sharia Advisory Council meetings at the SC. She's a pioneer lady Sharia scholar in Islamic finance, and it is indeed a pleasure to have you with us today. And we look forward to your perspectives, especially on Wakaf development. And I'll just give a short brief where, from the broad institutional perspective, from Prof. Dr. Engku, we will be moving to Professor Dr. Amir, who will then give us his insights and the role and progress of the National Wakaf Master Plan. Will be useful for us to understand the building blocks of this segment domestically moving forward. And from there, we will then look forward to hearing from Mr. Yusuf, a Wakaf investment specialist at the Islamic Development Bank, and also part of the team managing the Awqaf Properties Investment Fund. And it will be interesting to hear what are the plans in the pipeline for ISDB. Without further ado, and a quick reminder of 15 minutes to each panelist, leaving around 15 minutes for question and answers. I want to start the ball rolling. I believe I would like to start with Prof. Engku. And I think you also have slides, right, Prof. Engku?
Yes,
to share. But I also have a general question to start everyone off with, which is, what are the main challenges and obstacles that you all see to spur Islamic social finance in order to achieve efficient mobilization of zakat, sadaqah, or wakaf assets? Over to you, Prof. Engku.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you very much, Ms. Mana Sharifatul, for very kind introduction of myself and also of the topic. And also I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to participate in this panel. Yeah, I have a few slides to share with you. I hope the organizer can put the slide on. So basically, I'm going to touch on how Islamic social finance can actually, in a way, contribute towards attainment some of the SDGs. And in this regard, I would like to first go to the first part of the slide next on how actually when we talk about the SDGs, we have the 17 SDGs, and the main key takeaway from the SDG is the attempt to harmonize between economic prosperity, environmental concerns, and also societal well-being. So if you look at the next slide, these three pillars of sustainable development, social equity, environmental protection, and economic growth, which is meant to contribute towards lasting prosperity, is actually very much in line with the Islamic social finance philosophy as well. So if you look at Islamic social finance, it's also about economic well-being, social well-being, and ecological balance. And on top of that, it has another component, which is Sharia compliance. So in all our dealings in going about achieving economic, social, and ecological well-being, we are going to do all those things in a Sharia compliant manner, in a way that complies with the principles and rules that have been laid down by God on earth. And in doing so, we are trying to achieve the maqasid al-Sharia, the objective of the Sharia, which in a way I think is majorly reflected in the SDGs. So basically, the Maqasid al-Sharia talks about preservation of life, preservation of intellect, preservation of family and progeny, as well as preservation of wealth. I think these are all encompassed in the 17 SDGs. And on top of that, we also talk about preservation of religious, spiritual well-being, which may not be that apparent in the SDGs. But having said so, maybe we can look at the next slide. We can see that because of the major similarity between the ISF concerns and the SDG concerns, we can see that ISF is well positioned to actually positively contribute towards bridging the gap in the SDG funding and SDG investment. And this was highlighted earlier in the introductory remarks by Madam Sharifata Haniza on the needs of 5.7 trillion and how the COVID-19 pandemic has actually exacerbated the needs in many countries, while at the same time we see SDG investment drop by a third. So if this continues to be the case, then COVID-19 pandemic could lead to a lost decade for development. But we think that ISF can actually provide some of the immediate action and solution to mobilize investment in people and infrastructure in order to attain some of the SDGs, if not all. So in the next slide, I will focus directly into the Islamic social finance instruments. I think the traditional instruments are well known because they are more popular. Basically, the purely charitable Islamic social finance instruments in the like of zakah, in the likes of sadaqah and wakaf. But maybe some people do not realize that there are also other traditional Islamic social finance instruments like qard, which is interest-free loan, and also kafalah or guarantee, which are basically based on cooperation and also non-profit in nature. But in addition to the traditional Islamic social finance instruments, we also have the more modern forms of Islamic social finance, which actually had been blended with some kind of profit orientation, because we realized the human nature who likes to have some profits in addition to being charitable. I think this is very much reflected in the verse in the Quran that we actually seek from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us hasanah fid dunya and also hasanah fil akhirah, to give us good in this life, maybe the kind of profit and worldly benefits. At the same time, we're also seeking for good in the hereafter, which is more towards the charitable philanthropy side of it. If you look at the next slide, I would like to touch on the charity-based Islamic social finance instruments, because this actually has been the focus point that the moderator had sort of indicated for me to elaborate further. So if you look at the charity-based Islamic social finance instruments, we have the broad sadaqah. Sadaqah generally means just charitable donations. So that's the generic meaning of sadaqah. And under the sadaqah, we can see there's a mandatory sadaqah and voluntary sadaqah. And if you look at the mandatory sadaqah, we can see that there is zakah. And it's actually a mandatory form of charity which is levied on wealth, and it actually provides a kind of ultimate social security net for the people, because via zakat, the wealthy will be mandated to pay some portion of their wealth, which is typically 2.5% to 5% in most situations. And this would be the source for a redistributive mechanism to actually redistribute the resources to the unserved or underserved segments in the society. But what actually distinguishes zakat from the other Islamic social finance instruments is that I can say that zakat is perhaps the most strictly regulated of the other forms, because one, it is mandatory, and in terms of its collection, it is regulated in terms of who would be impose zakat on, and only the wealthy would be liable to pay zakat. And there's also regulation with regards to the amount of wealth that you have before zakat can be levied. And then there's also a maturity period, like 1 year need to pass for you to have that nisab. So this is we call the nisab and how requirement. And not only in terms of collection, there's regulation, there's also regulation in terms of its distribution, where zakat is actually mandated to be distributed to 8 categories of eligible recipients, basically to the fuqara, or the destitutes, and also the masakin, or the poor and needy, and also to the administrator of zakat, the amil, and also mu'allaf, the people who recently converted to Islam or interested in Islam. And then we have also the riqab, gharimin fi sabilillah, ibn sabil, which basically caters for those who wanted to uplift their life, and also to pay their debts and liabilities, and also to cater for defense purposes, and also for those who are traveling and become stranded in their travel and they need immediate expenses. So looking at the categories of eligible recipients of zakat, actually it is very much for immediate relief and meeting the basic necessities. And in that sense, it would be very suitable to fund SDG 1, SDG 2 in particular, and to further extent, it can also be used to fund SDG 3, SDG 4, SDG 6, and also SDG 8. And apart from that, we have also the second category of sadaqah would be the voluntary sadaqah. And this would actually be subdivided into 2 categories. The first one would be the one-off or ad hoc kind of sadaqah. This is the one that is now commonly known as the general sadaqah or infaq. And the second category of voluntary sadaqah would be the perpetual or the sadaqah jariyah, which is now more famously known as wakaf. So if you look at wakaf, the main feature is that it is actually voluntary, not like zakat, but it is also actually very much founder driven. So how the zakat, how the wakaf is to be distributed very much depend on the intention of the founder. But because it is a perpetual charity, it is irrevocable, perpetual, and inalienable. So in summary, it is flexible in terms of the beneficiaries based on the founder's intention, but because it is irrevocable and perpetual and inalienable, the original corpus of the wakaf needs to be preserved, and only the manfaah or the benefit coming to the wakaf can be used to benefit the beneficiaries. So that is the specific and unique features of wakaf. If you compare to sadaqah, the general sadaqah or the infaq, which is the one-off ad hoc sadaqah. This is the most flexible form of voluntary charity. It can be given by anyone and for anyone, and there's no need to preserve the corpus or the principle, and therefore it allows for the immediate use of that money. But still there is an issue of how to sustain the continuous contribution towards this fund, and in certain situations there can be issues of donor fatigue. Can we go to the next slide? So basically, the basic Islamic social finance, we have actually the basic features, but we need to enhance and empower these Islamic social finance instruments so that they can have better reach and impact. In a way, the Islamic social finance instruments are actually the sustainability voice of Islam. And if we strategically blend the basic Islamic social finance instruments with technology and also with smart partnership, it will actually potentially have a better reach and impact. And it will actually have the potential to transform the lives of people, and in the long run achieve the SDGs. Can we move to the next slide? I'm aware of the time. I think I have like how many minutes left? Let me.
I think about 2 to 3 minutes to go.
Okay.
Should be good.
So basically, to focus on zakat, how to enhance the role of zakat, for example, this while we see that zakat is always focusing on consumption, immediate meeting the consumption needs of the people. But there is actually a strong proposal that zakat need also to be aligned towards development and growth of the zakat recipients, not just to meet their basic consumption, not just to give them the fish, but also to teach them how to fish. So by focusing on development and growth, that would allow for productivity and also poverty eradication and better shared prosperity in the long run. The next slide. So basically, Islamic social finance should be moving towards impact-focused interventions. So it's not just about input and output, but we're also talking about outcome and impact. Next slide. We basically need to have a more focused intervention, especially in terms of SDG investments. And if you look at the UNDP study in 2020, it says that it should actually focus on social protection and welfare programs, governance, digitalization, green economy, and this would actually help to prevent rise of extreme poverty and help to also achieve the SDGs. Okay. So if you look at the next slide, I'm giving some examples of the initiatives that had been done. For example, at the Islamic Finance side, we have the My Wakaf Initiative 2020, which is a form of Islamic blended finance. It's actually blend the Islamic financial institutions with the State Religious Council, with the NGOs and social enterprises, and they develop a My Wakaf digital cash wakaf platform, and this is meant to finance impactful projects nationwide. And in the year of its launch, it managed to mobilize 7.6 million, and it is growing, and hopefully it can be successful in actually delivering impactful projects nationwide. Can we go to my, there are a number of examples here. Can we go to my last two slides? Okay, these are just examples. Also, the way forward, actually, the examples that I don't have time to deliberate on, actually are examples of how zakat institutions and zakat instruments, wakaf institution and wakaf instrument had smart partnership and collaboration with other bodies, maybe Islamic financial institutions, state authorities, NGOs, medical providers, and whatnot, in order to provide better and more impactful solutions to the society, like the cash wakaf link sukuk in Indonesia to develop and to finance the development of the eye hospital in one of the districts in Indonesia. Data and technology-driven intervention is also important, as we can see the experience of the International Zakat Initiative in Kenya, where they had actually managed to provide sustainable crop for a drought infected area of the Kenya region, and because of the science behind it, the crop managed to survive the severe drought, and they managed to provide essential food to the people in that region using zakat fund. And the last point for the way forward is actually to have coordination so that there will not be an overlapping in the interventions. So in conclusion, clear value propositions coupled with smart and strategic policies and actions will actually result in positive impact on the three pillars of sustainable development: economy, community, and environment. And in the long run, we are hoping to attain the maqasid al-Sharia, which also includes the spiritual and religious well-being of the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Engku, for that, for the quick but very succinct sharing of your perspective of it. Definitely, there are follow-up questions, and I'm going to park them a bit. We will circle back to you in the Q&A later. Can I now invite Dr. Ami to the front?
Right. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi and very good afternoon to all participants of this very important conference. Allow me to express my gratitude to the organizer for inviting me. I'm from Yayasan Wakaf Malaysia, one of the administrator of Wakaf in Malaysia. I prepared a few slides. Maybe organizer can show the slide, share the slide. All right, okay. I'd like to share with all participants about our National Wakaf Master Plan, a 10-year blueprint on how we want to bring our Wakaf institution to the next level. The background of this National Wakaf Master Plan is that because as a Wakaf administrator, we in Malaysia, we do realize that our current achievement in terms of bringing maximum impact to society is not yet to the level that we can proud of. A lot of improvement need to be done. So based on this premise, we collectively formulated a 10-year blueprint which aim to improve the contribution of Wakaf as one of the Islamic social finance component in Malaysia. So the next slide, please. So the National Wakaf Master Plan focus on 4 areas. First is to transform Wakaf institution. By transforming Wakaf institution, it means that we need to improve the level of professionalism in terms of the, for example, improving the governance, the transparency, and also the human talents in Wakaf institution. And this is the aim is to build trust and confidence of public towards Wakaf institution in Malaysia. Second is we want to strengthen our law and regulation because at the moment, due to lack of regulation and enforcement, there are a few cases where our Wakaf funds has been manipulated or exploited for individual or personal interest. So we want to minimize such cases. And the third focus, I think this is where I want to highlight in this conference. We want to integrate Islamic finance industry with Wakaf project. By integrating, we means that because we Malaysia, we are known as one of the leaders in Islamic finance industry. But unfortunately, when I involved in Wakaf project, we don't see yet many banking product or Islamic finance instrument has been applied or used to develop our Wakaf project. So this is the key area that we want to integrate between a very progressive Islamic finance industry in Malaysia with to be applied in our Wakaf projects. And the fourth focus is to enhance knowledge and awareness about Wakaf in Malaysia. By enhancing knowledge and awareness, it means that we want to educate the public on the correct understanding of Wakaf, because so far when we realize, when we promote wakaf, our majority of public in Malaysia, Muslim in Malaysia, when they understand wakaf, they understand it traditionally, meaning that wakaf project is only for them, is only for the religious purposes. So, for example, to build mosque, to build cemetery, or to build madrasah. That this is for them, is the wakaf project is limited for these purposes. But what we are discussing now is that beyond the religious purposes, for example, how a wakaf fund can be mobilized to achieve the SDG goals. This is something new in Malaysia. So this is the focus of our wakaf master plan. Our aim at the end of 2030, wakaf will contribute about 20% of the whole contribution of Islamic social finance, inshallah. So, okay, maybe we can go to next slide. So one of our strategy, our main strategy, is to increase cash wakaf collection, and with the specific target, we want to target more corporate, more companies to get involved in wakaf project, because at the moment, when we study our profiles of wakaf donors and wakaf founders, mainly they, especially on cash wakaf, they are coming from middle income groups. So the high net worth individual are yet to contribute to wakaf project in Malaysia. But when we did study further this issue, we see that there are a trust issue among these T20 groups. It is not mean that they don't contribute to wakaf, but they contribute more towards individuals projects, not institutional wakaf institution. So that's why I think the trust number one, to build a confidence and trust towards wakaf institution, is very critical to be addressed in our country. So moving forward, when we want to tap these corporates involvement, I think our wakaf project should be in line with SDG goals and to attain this ESG, the environment, the social and impact project. Okay, maybe we can go to the next slide. So this, I think, when we study about our wakaf project profiles, there are two kind of projects that wakaf involved. First is mainly on the charity-based project. This is, for example, to build mosques, to build orphanage residents, or to build senior citizen homes. This mainly, it require seed capital and funding, and also to maintain all the projects. But moving forward, we want to, focus more towards income generating wakaf project. For example, we have a lot of idle wakaf lands. So we want to utilize our wakaf land for the agriculture projects. And also we want to mobilize a wakaf fund to assist micro enterprises, because this will show that the wakaf will assist these micro enterprise to earn more income for them. Okay, next. So next, I want to highlight two what we can call is mega projects. One is this. This is funded by the government on this wakaf land. The government fund to build a residential home in Penang, about 152 units. The land is a wakaf land, and the fund come from the government to build these apartments for the low income earners. The cost is about 12 million USD dollars. So what I'm trying to say here is that in Malaysia, in order to build such a huge or a big projects like this, we need to gain a support from the government. So the public yet, we cannot mobilize our public fund to build such a big impact project. So we still rely on the government grant and also from the mainly the government to fund this kind of projects. And also, next slide, please. Similar, this is hotels, where 10 years ago we built hotels on the Wakaf land, and still the hotel is funded by the government. So the government, Malaysia is very lucky. We are very lucky because our government is very generous to build this hotel, and from proceed from this hotel, we manage it very well, and proceed from the hotel will be a channel to charities activities. So far in Yayasan Wakaf Malaysia, we manage 4 hotels, one in 4 different states in Malaysia. So this is the proceed from this investment will be channeled to our charities activities. Will be bring back the proceed to our society. Okay. All right. Okay. So just briefly, I want to the recent initiative where we in Yayasan Wakaf we launched this Wakaf Air, or Wakaf for Clean Water facilities a year ago, and this we can get a very good response from public because we collected about 1 million USD in cash, and the cash Wakaf is mobilized to provide clean water facilities in remote areas. Because in Malaysia, even though we are quite considered as a developed country, but in a remote area where, for example, these orang asli, they need clean water, and this fund, Wakaf fund, is to the funding is to fund project for Wakaf project below than 50 million ringgit in Malaysia. So I just want to summarize my presentation that first is in Wakaf project, we are now try to move from the traditional, from the religious projects into project that align with the SDG goals and try to cater the this ESG project. So Puan Sharifatul, I think that is to end my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amir. I already see questions lining up for you, so we'll just wait eagerly for the next panelist before we, like I said, we circle back to everybody. So can I invite now Mr. Yosef to share your perspective on the subject matter?
Sure, thank you very much, Madam Sharifatul. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulullah. It's really a pleasure and honor to be with you today from the Islamic Development Bank's Awqaf Properties Investment Fund. My name is Yusuf Al-Sawadi, and can I ask that we share the presentation in full screen, please? So if possible in full screen, that would be great. Thank you. As I mentioned, my focus is going to be on Awqaf. Specifically, I'm coming from the background of the Awqaf Properties Investment Fund of the Islamic Development Bank. Basically, the topic is Waqf as a development model for collective impact, connecting past success to present needs via tools such as the Awqaf Properties Investment Fund, or APIF. Next, please. Basically, I'm going to divide my presentation into 3 major parts. First of all, a slight background about Awqaf and development. Then I'll give APIF as an example of one of the Waqf-based tools. And then I'll end with some future outlooks for where Waqf is headed in terms of a development tool. Next, please. So to start with the background, next please. Waqf, as you know, obviously coming after two excellent speakers who both touched on Awqaf, I won't dwell too much. The idea is that it's basically Islamic charitable endowments, if we were to put it in you know, kind of more modern or Western terminology. Creating a waqf involves obviously setting aside the asset and preserving it and using the income or the benefit or the manfa'a, as Professor Rabia mentioned. The corpus is set aside and the returns are basically utilized. The traditional form is real estate, but also there are traditional forms of cash waqf, and more there are diversified forms of waqf such as shares, etc. There are major religious and philanthropic incentives to giving. Professor Rabia mentioned the idea of sadaqah jariyah, and this is really at the core of the waqf concept. It allows really for effective capturing of private savings and transmitting them intergenerationally and converting these private savings into social wealth. Next, please. So in line with the theme of this entire conference, the idea of connecting the dots, you know, what does waqf do? How does waqf serve us in terms of connecting various seemingly diverse aspects? First of all, waqf has had a major historical role in the Muslim world. We know that Islam is basically the civilization of waqf. You know, this is one of the adages that is used, but it is also a major contemporary role. It has a major contemporary role in the West. So we think about universities, for example, just as Harvard, you know, MIT, Cambridge, Oxford, you know, the major institutions of the West, all based on this concept of endowments, which really historically speaking was part of the Islamic civilization. So unfortunately, this has never translated. So this idea of endowment, which is extensively used in the West, has never been translated into development policy. And this is, you know, one of the themes of this talk, is that waqf endowments should really be mainstream development policy. And here we're again connecting history to the modern Western practice. Another connection also is that Awqaf bridge the gap between maqasid al-sharia on the one hand and SDGs on the other. I think Professor Rabia mentioned this, and I won't you know, dwell on it, but the idea that yes, there is a very strong connection between maqasid, between the objectives of sharia and between you know, the modern SDGs agenda, and waqf definitely highlights this linkage. Furthermore, Awqaf combine the benefits of private sector management and market efficiencies on the one hand, and public sector social goals on the other, via non-profit business or third sector approach. So the idea that in fact there is a midway solution. You know, we always have this duality which is presented between the private sector and public sector, but in fact there is a third sector, and waqf really epitomizes this third sector in the Islamic tradition. So again, we're connecting the dots. And finally, we're talking about connecting private wealth and savings to development finance. And this is really in line with also the capital markets approach at scale. You know, the idea that there is a huge amount of savings out there, but how to convert that savings into much needed development finance. You know, talking about the huge development finance gap, this is really what is needed. And waqf is a very effective way to funnel this kind of philanthropic savings to where it's badly needed. Next, please. Another theme of our talk. So I think our specific session today is about collective impact. So let's you know, focus in and see how waqf can serve collective impact. Awqaf necessarily involve various stakeholders, including, for example, donors or founders of the Awqaf, investors and managers, and the program implementers who actually use the proceeds of Awqaf. They give their founders or donors a very high level of involvement, enshrining their will in the condition of the endower. I think, again, Professor Dr. Rabia mentioned the fact that waqf is founder-driven. And this is enshrined in the Sharia adage that the condition of the waqif are similar to the texts of the legislator. شرط الواقف كنص الشارع. In this way, Awqaf represent an organic grassroots approach to development finance based on a collective and inclusive societal identification of what is crucial and what is needed. we're coming bottom up, we're starting from the donors, we're allowing donors to actually vote using their financial resources for what is really most important. Next, please. Zeroing in on one example of operationalizing Awqaf, we can discuss the ISDB's Awqaf Properties Investment Fund. Next, please. So the Awqaf Properties Investment Fund is a tool of operationalizing Awqaf support via Global Impact Investment Fund. It uses an Islamic modes of financing to promote a form of Islamic social finance, which is Awqaf. The fund is not new, so APIF was established in 2001. However, it began originally with the idea of financing historical Awqaf land and properties and developing properties in line with what Dr. Amir was, Professor Dr. Amir was talking about. Over time and over the last couple of decades, APIF has developed into something which is really unique, I believe, in the world of development and among all MDPs. So we're the only fund really in MDPs that focuses not on direct use facilities, but rather on what you might call second degree development. So we're focusing on establishing and growing endowments, financing endowments, which I think is a really very unique concept in the world of international development. And perhaps I might say we came to it by historical coincidence. So the operational model of APIF basically focuses on financing projects, so project financing, where the project is expected to repay the financing, and then the proceeds or the remaining proceeds go to actually support a nonprofit organization. Next, please. We support various SDGs. So, the SDGs are as diverse as the diversity of the nonprofit organizations that are supported by our financing. Next, please. From an international development perspective, much can be said about the role of Awqaf, but maybe touching on a few of the most important points. The idea is that often development projects, say schools, hospitals, etc., can create fiscal burdens or pressures on governments. So focusing on having Waqf components as part of mainstream development projects can really help to cover the post-completion operating costs, for example, of these projects, say healthcare facilities or education facilities, etc. We have examples of supporting areas of fragility and conflict through establishing Awqaf in neighboring, politically and economically stable countries. Again, we're talking about real estate Awqaf in the more traditional sense. And APIF as an impact investment fund can help mobilize private, public, and nonprofit investments to ultimately support public needs as mentioned previously. Next, please. In total, APIF is managing about 214 million in terms of assets under management. Next, please. And it includes a diverse array of investors that you can see, really, spans the globe, and provides only one example, and a private equity example at that. So I can imagine similar examples being done in our capital markets level. Next, please. Again, the global perspective, so 27 countries, 55 projects, serving a diverse sector or diverse array of sectors. Next, please. This gives an idea of the geographical distribution. Next, please. I won't dwell on the numbers in terms of the impact of specific projects. Next, please. Maybe it's suffice it to give one example of a very impactful project, the Bangladesh Islamic Solidarity Education Waqf. I'm sure a number of people in the audience will be aware of this project, but I really think it's a flagship project in the area of Waqf development. It was actually established before APIF itself, but it was led by the ISDB and the government of Bangladesh jointly. So basically, by receiving land from the government of Bangladesh, a grant component from the ISDB, and ordinary financing from ISDB, the output was an office building, a major office building, and a computer mall. And it resulted in a major kind of set of programs. The flagship program was an IT scholarship, which is quite well known in Bangladesh and then has had excellent results. Until this day, the governance structure is very strong and includes representatives from the government of Bangladesh and from the Islamic Development Bank, who meet in what is called the Mutawalli Committee. So I think it's an example of Waqf governance as well, driven by an international development institution in collaboration with the local government. Next, please. I won't dwell on this example. Next, please. So finally, the future of Waqf and development. Next, please. I do believe there is a huge potential to expand the role of Waqf as a development model. Diversification is necessary and needed, so we need to get into more of cash Waqfs. We need to look at things that can be done through capital markets as well to really take the Waqf model to scale. One example is that of the cash Waqf sukuk, or the cash Waqf linked sukuk, I believe, which has been done in Indonesia as well. There is a need to connect Waqf to areas of ESG and CSR, so really to make it relevant to the modern world. The governance standards and Awqaf legal frameworks are in need of development in many Islamic countries. I think COVID-19 has really brought to the forefront the idea that we need resilience. We need resilience at the social level. We need resilience of our healthcare institutions. And we can really not predict what the world will throw at us. So the best way to mitigate the risks of unforeseen challenges is to be resilient. The best way to be resilient is to be perhaps financially sustainable through this model of Awqaf. One example now that we're undertaking is a joint initiative with the UNDP to look at healthcare facilities electrification in sub-Saharan Africa through this model of Awqaf investments. Next, please. Finally, I believe this is my final slide. The area of digitization. Digitization has to be mentioned when you talk about the future. So Islamic fintech, as some of the speakers mentioned previously, is huge. It's a growing area. It's an area which can easily be linked to Awqaf to attract donors. Atif itself is partnering with a digital media consultancy to work on mobilizing resources for its own Awqaf projects. I think investments also in Awqaf projects are an area where we could really benefit from capital market scalability. The ISDB Institute also has a strong focus today on digitization, and I think they're doing a number of initiatives in the area of digitization related to Awqaf. One interesting example is the Ishhad platform, which is designed as an electronic blockchain-based platform for the documentation, verification, and protection of Awqaf properties. I believe this brings me to the end. Next, please. With that, I would like to thank you very much for your attentive listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yusuf, for the very enriching presentation. I mean, we now know how ISDB does it, and I'm sure there are questions waiting to be asked. I am looking at the questions that are coming in. Whilst I also have burning questions myself for the panel, but I'm going to try and take the ones from the audience first, just to be fair. And this is not going to be gender bias, Prof. Engku, but the first question that's on the list is for Dr. Amir. And actually, it ties in with another point that Prof. Engku had raised in your presentation, Prof. Engku, which is enhancement and empowerment and governance. Because the first question, Dr. Amir, is how does Yayasan Waqaf Malaysia collaborate effectively with the state Islamic religious councils of all the other states beyond Wilayah Persekutuan? I mean, and this is, of course, a Malaysia-specific question, but it does give a flavor as to how governance and institutionalization will be influenced by how the traditional management of Waqaf assets can be in any jurisdiction. Dr. Amir?
Yeah. We at Yayasan Waqaf Malaysia is a federal agency, and as we know that in Malaysia, the legal framework of Waqaf, the Waqaf matters is belong to the state. So we have 14 different states, and these Islamic state Islamic religious councils are the what we term as the sole trustee of Wakaf asset in Malaysia. So how Yayasan Wakaf come into the picture is that the government established Yayasan Wakaf Malaysia in order to complement the state Islamic religious council. So we are supposed to help or assist the state religious council to develop Wakaf asset in our country. So the mechanism is that if we have this, like for example, the Wakaf water, clean water, Wakaf air, we call it. So we will table the project to our board members because the establishment of Yayasan Wakaf Malaysia is comprised of 14 states. These 14 states are the representative or the board members of Yayasan Wakaf Malaysia. So at any national agenda will be tabled or presented to this board, and the Ma'ins, all these Islamic State Religious Council, if approved, then they will support this agenda. So to answer the question is that this is the mechanism where we can pursue Wakaf agenda at the national level because Yayasan Wakaf Malaysia is supported by the 14 states in our country. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ratami. Actually, I do have a follow-up question on that, and this is tied to the speech that was made by DG Dato' Rashid on transformative impact. Because I mean, when you talk about that ability to link it to the SIRCs, and again, I always circle back to Prof. Engku's slides just now on how does one make sure input, output, outcome, impact, because you need to have that control, that autonomy. So, and there were 4 points that you talked about: the lack of regulation, the knowledge and awareness, be it at the institution level or the man on the street level. So how does one get past that?
Yeah, it's a very tough question. And it's also
I know it's a whole different conversation, but maybe that does give a flavor to you know, what are the elements that we need to make the shift the meter. I think that's the important bit, because I hear from all of the speakers today, it's about making an impact. It's about education and awareness. And actually there's a few questions on education and awareness. So how does one
just
make
to
that?
answer you briefly, Mr. Niza, I think it's leadership at the Wakaf institution at all levels is very important. It's very critical in Malaysia. So we need to improve, enhance our leadership, our knowledge and skills at the managerial level and also at the board level, whether it is at Yayasan Wakaf at the federal or at the state level.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Amir. I'll take a question for Prof. Engku right now, and this refers to your slide on the model of Sadaqah, Prof. Mandatory versus voluntary. A good word here where it says it's a very comprehensive model, but from the perspective of the researchers, and I presume you're also scholars, what are the main challenges to blending SDG investment and voluntary Sadaqah?
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Hadiza, and also the person who posed the question. Actually, focusing on the challenges, of course, there are many challenges. Okay, for the one thing, for the voluntary sadaqah, like wakaf and also the normal infaq, we are now excluding zakat because you are talking about voluntary, right? One thing is to get or to mobilize the funds, basically. We have seen from the experience of Lakin Central Wakaf shares, right? They targeted, a very high amount, and they only managed to get not even, 10% of what they targeted, right? So it's not easy to actually find an area which is close to the heart of the donors where they are willing to come in. Okay, so I think we need to also be like I was mentioning about data driven. Okay, data driven. I had a student who had finished or completed his PhD, one of the things that he actually looked at is critical success factor for social impact bonds. And one of the things that he did was actually to conduct a survey on areas of philanthropy or areas of social impact, which is of interest to the potential donors. And he had a findings in terms of priority, he can list down. So by having this kind of data, then you know what are actually close to the hearts of the donors in a particular area. So then that can go for targeted, one of SDG, like I think things like zero hunger, poverty. I think this may be close to the hearts of the people, maybe education. So if you do it based on that thing, you can actually try to get a good participation from the donors. And also another thing is not only getting the money. I think that's also linked to the question that you posed to Dr. Amir earlier, is actually on how do you channel the money to the would-be recipients in the more effective way. So this is again having to know based on data which service provider had been doing impactful interventions. This can be NGOs, this can be healthcare, this can be education related. So you need to know the people on the ground, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, we are working together not only between the, let's say, the State Religious Council and the Wakaf funds that they have collected, but you need to also be able to work with the change maker, those on the ground who's going to be delivering the things on the ground to make it impactful. Just to give the example of the Kenyan example, they have data to actually help them to work with the people, and it was actually successful because some of the recipients, they are not even Muslim, and because the crop was successful, they actually became zakat payers, quote unquote, because they actually get a lot of crops that they're eligible to actually donate as part of the crops, and then they return back the principle of the zakat to the origin donor, and that is being reused in another district in order to replicate the previous success. So I think these are there are challenges, but there are mechanisms to overcome those challenges. So you need to identify what are the costs, which is close to the heart of your potential donors, and how are you going to deliver the benefits to those people.
Well, it's interesting, Prof. Anku, that you talked about, whether or not they're Muslims or non-Muslims that's contributing to this cause. Because one of the questions that's been posed is, how does one educate? Sorry, I think the question was, how does one educate non-Muslims on the importance of voluntary sadaqah and SDG for the benefits of the community and globally? And I think this is also it's faith neutral on this. On the intent, and for every human being, the instinct is to help, and to assist. But and I think again the common theme that ran with in all of the three panelists here was also about knowing what you're putting the funds to, and what happens of it. And definitely data and technology is one more point I would like to come back to ask, and maybe I'll probably start with Mr. Yosef later on that. But then, Prof. Anku, you had said a keyword. I wanted to maybe take 1 minute of your time, because I know we're getting indications that we only have X amount of minutes. You said donor fatigue, but yet there is that hunger to get this, moving, to translate charity and to translate good intent into sustainability, meet the various SDG goals. But where's this donor fatigue coming in? Because I think I also realized that when you talk about sadaqah or wakaf or zakat, which is much easier, I guess, in that sense, because it's compulsory. So when it comes to zakat and when it comes to sadaqah and wakaf, absolute values of funds collected is usually very not to the optimal levels. So where did that phrase donor fatigue come in? Just to understand.
Yeah, what I can see, there are many reasons why donor suffers from donor fatigue. But basically, one of the things is I think they don't see. One is they don't see the impact of the money that they have been giving. They have been giving, and they don't see who the beneficiaries are, how it impacted the beneficiaries. Are there adequate reports of what is happening on the ground? Okay, so I think that is important in order for the donor to continuously trust that they are serving the cost that they're initially, being spurred to actually contribute in the first place. So you need to actually continue to get the flare burning, that we're keeping them updated on how it has impacted their beneficiaries. I think technology can actually help us to improve the traceability and the visibility of what happened to the dollar and cent that you have given. So this is how it impacted the people that who have received the benefits from your money. So by looking at that, I think you can actually invigorate their enthusiasm to further donate, and also it will actually prevent trust deficit. There's another thing that comes with donor fatigue is also trust deficit. Yeah. So those are, I think, the key points. And this is actually back to the second question just now. This is equally applicable whether you are Muslim or non-Muslim. There's always a feel-good factor when you give, and then you can see that there's impact coming from those who are benefiting from the things that you are giving.
And to address that, I think going back to our headline, which is where are the new frontiers, if you're going to make it collective impact, it seems data and tech-driven interventions is one key enabler for this. So if I can just move to Mr. Yosef, I mean, where do you see that level of adoption of either digitization or technology is what that's key, and how has that been able to help in your experience of it? Because if you were to go into, say, blended finance structure, you want to be integrating them, it cannot be efficient if it did not or was not supported by a tool such as technology. So what was your experience with this, Mr. Yosef?
Thank you, Madam Sharifatul. To be honest, obviously Islamic crowdfunding and fintech is an up and coming area. I think I'm not an expert in technology per se, but I can give some limited insights from where I sit and from my perspective. I've been involved in a few initiatives which have attempted to do something with zakat. This is still an ongoing process, actually, and I think we've run into major, I wouldn't say obstacles, but challenges, related to, for example, jurisdictions. So when you try to do digital crowdfunding, at a global level, you have major questions that you need to ask, about, how local do I go? What kind of legal considerations do I need to make? And I think, certain countries, especially in Southeast Asia, are quite advanced, in terms of, more advanced than other areas in terms of digitization and really putting the legal infrastructure in place for doing things like online crowdfunding. But closer to perhaps my area of expertise is the concept of awqaf and awqaf investment. And I do think there is a real potential to bring investors on board through electronic platforms and digital platforms, even beyond crowdfunding, beyond the philanthropic drive. So maybe a more impact investment drive, where one of the major benefits of awqaf in the sense that we understand awqaf, so we're talking about revenue generating awqaf. I think Professor Dr. Amir mentioned, the idea that we're shifting away from the quote unquote traditional conception of awqaf towards a more idea of, okay, we're talking about investments, right? We're talking about at the base, we're talking about non-profit business in the service of social or public good or needs. So the idea that this is actually one of the strong points of awqaf in this sense is that it does generate income. So in that way, you can attract these people who have the social dimension, but they also have the kind of philanthropic urge. And I think implementing solutions, and this is perhaps where capital markets, digital platforms, and philanthropy and Islamic social finance can all come together, to allow people to invest in social good. I'm talking about things which are rather, conceptual at this point. But I think there are some good examples. We have, real estate investment platforms, for example, which are digital. On the other hand, we also have, online platforms such as LaunchGood and Ethos and that kind of, socially oriented platform. So how to merge the two, I think that is the coming frontier.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that, Mr. Yusuf. We only have about 3 minutes left. I would like to take 2 questions, one for Dr. Amir and one for Prof. Engku. Well, no, maybe I think it's just one more for maybe Prof. Engku and this, but happy to have any of the other co-panelists to jump in. Prof, I know this is a bit of a interesting question here. The ministry successfully collected 3 million to clean water purpose. I believe this was a slide from Dr. Amir kan tadi, if I'm not mistaken. This fund is derived from public donation. The question from the audience is, from Sharia perspective, can the government utilize taxpayer money to channel to Wakaf project? Example, budget allocation in Rancangan Malaysia, whatever. And if yes, what is the Sharia justification to allow government funds for Wakaf? I was also a bit interested with that question, so why not try and answer this?
Okay. So the question is about the taxpayers' money, right? Not the one that you are collecting from donation, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
It's a very long piece of question.
Yes. I had to read it out verbatim, Prof.
Yeah, okay. So I think for the taxpayers' money, one of the things that we're talking about Wakaf, because it's part of, from the religious and Sharia perspective, it's part of ibadah, right? So as any forms of ibadah, it requires like the intention to actually do something for that purpose. So so normally it would be like natural persons making intentions to do wakaf for the sake of Allah, and for benefiting the people. Okay, so then that would be from legally legal and Sharia perspective, that's wakaf. Okay, but that does not prevent government to allocate certain government fund taxpayers' money to support wakaf projects, because if you look at wakaf, there are a lot of expenditures in a wakaf project that may not technically qualify for getting it from the wakaf fund itself, and some of them actually they may require, they can get from the wakaf fund, but after the wakaf fund has generated return, like the expenses for initial expenses for the project. So it is good if the government and taxpayers money can be used to provide the initial funding, whether as outright grants or a kind of soft loan, so that the wakaf project can go on, can have a kickstart, and then once the wakaf project is sort of ongoing and is generating return, so if it is soft loan, then that initial funding by the taxpayers can be paid back from the profits generated from the wakaf, because there's always allocation from the wakaf profits to cater for the expenses of the wakaf. But at the initial stage, that would require some kind of advance, or maybe as a loan or as an outright grant from the government. Outright grant, that means you don't have to spend your wakaf benefits to that purpose, and you can directly spend it for the benefits of the beneficiaries. Another area is actually if, let's say, especially for cash wakaf, because the initial years of cash wakaf, the principal will be put into investment avenues to generate profit. So in the first few years, it will not have enough profit to benefit the beneficiaries. So the funding from the taxpayers meant for supporting the wakaf can be used immediately to pay some of the beneficiaries. Again, whether as an outright grant or as a kind of loan. So when the wakaf is generating return, it can be repaid back if it is a kind of loan. Okay. So there are various ways actually to use it, but technically speaking, it's not wakaf money, but it is money that is used to support the wakaf. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof. Engku. I'm told the time's up, but I'm sure the organizers will allow me a few minutes. I would like to do just around the table opportunity to all the panelists to maybe give one or two aspirational conclusions. To such a good intent, the topic deserves definitely longer than this. There's much to be talked about on a granular basis. We can only touch the surface here. But obviously, we know Islamic social finance, the various verticals, whilst we are looking at new frontiers and we'd like to see it support the SDGs, there is still much room to grow, to execute, for it to prosper. Where would can I just get one or two sentences from each of the from each of the panelists on where how do you see it going to an optimal level and achieve it by 2030 even?
Yeah, I think from Yayasan Wakaf Malaysia and also Wakaf Administrator in Malaysia, we see that this by 2030 we will become a major component of Islamic social finance, because in Malaysia we already establish or improve our zakat collection and distribution. Alhamdulillah, year by year we managed to collect about 3 billion ringgit for zakat and distribute it year by year. But now is a time for us to develop wakaf. We have been discussed very long, in great detail, how we want to achieve this. And alhamdulillah, inshallah, by having this national master plan, and the most important is to implement the blueprint. So inshallah by 2030 we can see that we can become a very significant contributor to this Islamic social finance in broad. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. May. Mr. Yusuf, can I invite you?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Sharifatul. It's been a real pleasure to be part of this panel. I can only say that historically, in our Islamic civilization, as I said before, one of our major contributions was really this concept of awqaf as a fundamental pillar of society, and it represented a huge part of GDP, quote unquote. I look forward and dream of a future where the nonprofit sector, based on a waqf modality of business, really makes up a significant portion of our respective GDPs in the Islamic world. Thank you.
Thank you. And Prof. Anko?
Okay, I think my aspiration is to see the Islamic social finance support the community to be financially independent in the long run. And to achieve that, I think we need perhaps two key things I want to touch on. One is collaboration and smart partnership. I think we cannot afford anymore to work in silo and unnecessary competition between us. So we need to work together. Okay. And the second point is about impact measurement. Okay, so we need to be able to develop KPIs on how we measure the impact and make it as an industry standard so that we have something to show in terms of how our interventions had actually resulted in some impacts on the community, on the environment, and also in terms of economic prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Anko. I know this topic deserves a lot more time, and there are several offshoots. I do hope UNDP will be able to organize more discussions like this. I think there are side conversations and intent that we do more discussions. I apologize to those that we have not been able to answer. Maybe we'll find some way of doing it. We'll talk to the organizers and see whether there is an ability to do that offline from this platform. I would like to say thank you to all my fellow panelists today for giving such insights and taking their time out of their busy schedules to share. Obviously, we know to usher in new frontiers, we do need to ensure the close continuous collaboration, as Prof. Anku said. I think that's a word that's never been overused among relevant stakeholders, amplifying awareness for sure, along with creating new and more success stories. And with that, I guess, inshallah, we will connect the dots. And on that note, I wish everyone a blessed journey ahead in our intent and aspirations. Thank you to all for participating, both panelists and the audience. And inshallah, we'll meet again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Ms. Haniza and esteemed panelists, for that wonderful session. As an MC and part of the organizing committee, I normally gauge or remark a session as good by the number of questions that we get and the interactivity that we get. And Alhamdulillah, as I can see, there are a number of questions that came in throughout the session. Thank you so much for those questions. And unfortunately, due to the time constraint that we have, the moderator had to skip a number of questions. So I would like to humbly ask the panelists if you can just type in reply the questions via text on the Q&A panel. That will be great. That will be helpful for our participants who tuned in and posed those questions to the session or to the particular speaker, inshallah. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker really needs no introduction. If I were to actually read his full bio, it would be a speech unto by itself, but regardless, I will try to do it with a sentence or two anyway. He is the chairman of the Sharia Advisory Council of Bank Negara Malaysia and also the Securities Commission Malaysia, as well as sitting on the Sharia board or advisory councils of various global financial institutions. He is currently the chairman of the Federal Territory Islamic Religious Affairs, or MAWIP, and the president of the International Islamic University of Malaysia, IIUM. He has authored many books, including the well-acclaimed Sharia Minds in Islamic Finance, an inside story of a Sharia scholar, and also the founder and executive chairman of Amani Group. If you don't know who I'm talking about right now, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the speech entitled Connecting the Dots, Harnessing Islamic Finance to Accelerate the Achievement of the SDGs, please welcome Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khairi khalqihi wa khairil anam sayyidil mursalin Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yang berbahagia Datuk Syed Zaid Albar, Executive Chairman, Securities Commission Malaysia, Honorable Ms. Usha Rao Monari, UN Under Secretary General and Associate Administrator of UNDP, Yang Bahagia Datuk Zainal Izlan Zainal Abidin, Deputy Chief Executive, Securities Commission Malaysia, Yang Bahagia Datuk Sheikh Abdul Rashid Abdul Ghafur, Deputy Governor, Central Bank of Malaysia, distinguished speakers and panelists, participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day. It gives me great pleasure to say a few words in this important conference. I believe that this is a very timely conference given the current landscape of the world. First and foremost, allow me to put on record my profound gratitude to all the organizers and collaborators of having me today to share my thought and perspective on connecting the dots in the process of harnessing Islamic finance to accelerate the achievement of SDGs. I am very humble and honored to be given this important slot to infuse and to embed the very essence of Islamic finance into the body of SDG. Allow me to put some preamble before I proceed further to discuss and to share and elaborate what I have been thinking about this topic for many, many years. First thing first, I think the topic of connecting the dots is the most frequently neglected aspect in this modern world. I think we have put a very conducive ecosystem to support every aspect of life as we are progressing to the modern world, education, social security, environment, the welfare, the political stability, the economic enrichment, and what have you. But the only problem which is still left and unattended has been the dots which are connected. So the topics of connecting the dots for me is very right and is very timely. And on that score, I would like to attempt in the next few minutes of how we can connect all the dots which we have created in the first place to achieve the entire and the ultimate aim and desire of any policy of the world. Also, I would like to see and argue what would be the right step and measures to accelerate rather than to do or to take the business as usual. Business as usual is no longer relevant. More so after we have witnessed and we have gone through the very intensity of the two twin of crisis, the COVID-19, as everyone is aware, and the climate change of the world, which has affected this time around Malaysia quite badly. So given these two important background, we need to work harder, quicker, smarter to accelerate the achievement of SDG. Meaning to say the normal way of doing things is no longer relevant. And perhaps on this point, the keyword of acceleration should be the theme not only for this theme of the world, but also the theme of safety, security, social net, and what have you in the current climates of the world. The last point under the preamble section, I would like to invite everyone to see the new essence or perhaps priorities of ESG or SDG given the twin crisis of COVID-19 and the climate change. The time has come for everyone to look deeper into the current state of affairs of our ESG and SDG respectively, because when the world community work together to put for the first time the very blueprint of SDG, it was based on the existing variable of the world then, but things have moved, have changed in terms of the landscape, in terms of technology, in terms of income bracket, in terms of the impact of employment and the social mobility, and the list continues. And for that matter, perhaps the time has come for everyone to relook, redefine, and reassess the very essence and priorities of ESG and priorities. Perhaps out of 17 SDG and the 6 vertical of ESG, of PRI and 3 pillars of ESG, we need to add on perhaps, and we need to zero in on some aspect of ESG or SDG as the case may be. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with the challenges. I have to admit that there are many challenges facing the agenda of ESG in the current world, and that includes the Islamic world to a large extent. First is the lack of knowledge and awareness of ESG and SDG, collectively speaking, because again, not many Muslim fraternities or Islamic-based association or Islamic-based societies, not to mention Muslim leaders, are aware of the very meaning of ESG, what more the very important of ESG and SDG in terms of putting them in the roadmap of the government administration, not to mention the education, the financial sector, and what have you. So the lack of knowledge has been very, very obvious in some of the world, and that include the Islamic world to a large extent. The second challenge, again, based on my interaction and my discussion with some of my colleagues in the Islamic financial world, perhaps I can say with a full of humility and full of balanced perspective, there is a lack of readiness of some Sharia fraternity or some scholars, to mention clearly, to infuse Islamic finance, Islamic social finance in the the essence and the fabric of ESG and SDG. In other words, if I can rephrase my statement, some of the scholars might have thought ESG and SDG have nothing to do with the very formation of Islamic law and Islamic law philosophy. And that is very much unfortunate because perhaps they don't have the true understanding of ESG or SDG that led them to believe that ESG and SDG have nothing to do with the very formulation of Islamic law, the sources, the philosophy, the methodologies, so much so that they thought this is not part of Islam. And that is one of the challenges as we speak today. The third challenge as we move forward to accelerate the achievement of SDG is over-reliant on some aspect of financial scheme and financial technology. Again, in many discussions like this, people tend to focus and refocus and over-focus on the few topics like zakat and wakaf to bring back the entire world into what it ought to be. And that is not right, because we should be discussing about the importance of zakat and wakaf to redistribute the wealth, to rechannel the wealth into appropriate channel of distribution, but over-reliant kills. Over-reliant on these two instruments will make us forgetting about the whole entire scheme of Islamic social finance, which are not limited and shouldn't be limited to one or two products as we have seen in the past. The same goes to financial fintech. We cannot be saying fintech can solve all the problems. Fintech can and should be able to solve, but fintech alone cannot solve the issue of SDG and SDG as we move forward. The last challenge from my humble perspective is the ultimate and strong desire for the absolute level of perfection. We talk about ESG and SDG, wanted to achieve 100% mark at the end of the day. This is counterproductive, to say the least, because ESG and SDG is a process, it's a journey to bring our society to a better level as we move on to increase our level of products, our policy scheme of things, and what have you. And the moment we bring in the ultimate desire to make it perfect, and that will be counterproductive and will create unnecessary debate in the society. Ladies and gentlemen, I move on to the methodologies of harnessing Islamic finance and Islamic social finance to accelerate the achievement of SDG. If I may vote, the first important and most performing methodology is to embed the ESG and the SDG in the main frame of financial screening and decision. Whenever we do the financial screening, the pre-screening, before we go to the credit, before we go to the risk, before we go to asset liability, for example, perspective, we need to screen the potential and would-be deal and cases to be financed under the ESG and the SDG, if you like, scanner or perhaps a mirror, so that we know that this would pass that particular screen before we go to next level of credit risk and even Sharia compliant at the end of the day. And what more, if we have done that and everything is in place, in order, but we have another round to see the impact of our financial decision on the whole entire scheme of ESG and SDG. So we have the first screening, we have the last perhaps screening to see the impact. There are many potential projects before us. They are good from the credit risk and the ESG or Sharia compliant included, but what would be the best impactful projects within the radar and given our balance sheet capabilities within the bank or the fund. The second methodology requires a bit of courage among the scholars fraternity, the great mind of Islamic finance practitioners to be able to create new product for special purpose. Because if we were to follow the normal scheme of things, that product would not be deemed as Sharia compliant. But given the special need of that sector, we might need to give a new dimension of argument altogether. I'll give you, everyone, one good example. We know that under Islamic principle of investment, we cannot guarantee the capital and the profit. No capital guarantee, no profit guarantee. And this is called Ad-Daman ala Ra'sil Mal. And it was reported in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, has been reported to have said, to have prohibited any profit which is lack and void of taking the risk in correspondence to that profit. Nahan Nabi and ribahin ma lam yudman. But somehow the scholars in the past have seen the need to give some exception. For example, if we are managing the wealth of the orphan, the underprivileged in the society, the scholars have allowed the fund manager to give the guarantee for the investor. When they put the money for the interest of the orphan, the fund manager can provide the guarantee for the capital as well as for the profit. So perhaps from that perspective, we may identify one or two or three important sectors of ESG or SDG, not all of them, some of them that deserve to be given this kind of special treatment. Perhaps the poverty, perhaps the need to have affordable and drinkable water, and for that we need to have a water fund. And the water fund for some sectors and some geographies of the world need to be protected. And that is something that we need to open up our mind and give the best we could to make sure that we are in line with giving some special treatment to support a very pressing needs of the society. The third methodology, briefly, is to recognize the ability, the courage to recognize ESG and SDG as part and parcel of the Maqasid al-Sharia. Don't be ashamed, don't be, don't feel something which is not right. We have to start talking and articulating a very loud voice that ESG and SDG are definitely part, an integral part of the Maqasid al-Sharia. I have written a book on Maqasid al-Sharia. Recently, I have argued vehemently that ESG and SDG are and should be one of the top priorities of Maqasid al-Sharia because it can conserve, it can preserve the good values of the planet on which we are living at the moment. And the whole purpose of living in this world is to get the best benefit possible. And ESG and SDG are there to support that kind of ultimate desire of living on this blue planet. Last but not least, the ability to infuse Sharia compliant and Sharia impact financing together. Perhaps in the future could be only one branding when we talk about ESG or SDG Sharia compliant. It includes also the Sharia compliant screening at the same time. So there's no more two level of branding. We have only one branding, one brand that can speak on behalf of the two dimensions of the scope. Last but not least, how to move forward. I would appeal to my colleagues in the financial sector across the board to start practicing to bring about the scanning of Islamic finance asset from the ESG and the SDG perspective. Okay, so we start doing our own practice. We have some deal coming to the board of directors, passing all the credit and the risk element of it, and asset liability, liquidity, stress tests and whatnot. why can't we start putting another test on the ESG or SDG compliant, and to learn from that perspective. The earlier we start the practice, the better for us to have the full feeling of having the ESG and the SDG being planted in our world of Islamic financial world. Perhaps how to move forward. Next will be the ESG first policy. In Malaysia, for example, when we wanted to promote is a banking and finance, a few of the leading bank in Malaysia, they have adopted Islamic first. When the customer come to the bank, the customer is given the first offer to consider Islamic banking. If they decline, only then the bank will offer them the conventional product. That has helped Malaysia a lot in terms of propelling the development of Islamic banking asset in the country. Perhaps the same now come to ESG. We can give the ESG first policy to all the banks. Third, to start adopting integrated reporting framework. And the government should give more incentive, should encourage, and should give more grant, if any, to encourage not only the financial sector, but also the companies at large, not only the public state company, but also the privately held company, to start putting in the integrated reporting framework so that we can have a better reporting standard in Malaysia and beyond, to see the element of social impact to our yearly based activities of the company. Next is the reward system and policies to encourage many more participants taking into the board discussion, in the boardroom discussion, the agenda of SDG and ESG. And I hope at the end of the day, eventually the time will come for us to enforce a complete and total compliance of ESG and the SDG in the near or far future. And when the time is right, and we have to be ready to be in comply with the consequence. And before we arrive at that juncture, this is the time for us to do more kind of awareness, incentive, discussion, deliberation, to make sure that ESG and the SDG will be embedded, infused with Islamic finance naturally and in a manner which is subtly, and that would be the best products of the world, where a product can have the best two standard of compliance, the Sharia compliance standard and the impact investment standard. At the end of the day, I would like to thank again the organizers and collaborators for having me in this session. I would like to wish all the participants a very fruitful, meaningful and purposeful event moving forward. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri, for those closing remarks. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the first day. Hope that you have gained valuable insights and learned a thing or two from our speeches and session today, inshallah. If you want to learn how to incorporate the SDGs into your business or investment for a more resilient and sustainable future, do sign up to the free online course called Impact Measurement and Management for SDGs that was created by UNDP's SDG Impact and Case at Duke University. You will learn the foundations of the SDG Impact Standards, the only management standards in the market that considers all 17 SDGs holistically. The course is only about 10 hours long and you can learn at your own pace. Sign up here at imm4sdgs.com, which the link is on the website, on the screen, and also in the chat window right now. And that's where you get the link. Excuse me, sorry. So with that, don't forget to join us tomorrow, where we will be delving into how Islamic fintech is being used for positive social impact, as well as identifying the building blocks to move towards a stronger impact ecosystem within the Islamic finance and Islamic social finance landscape. So do join us tomorrow at 3 p.m. Malaysia time with the same link. And before we leave, I would like to invite everyone to fill in the event feedback form appearing on your screen right now, so you can scan the QR code. Also, as well as the link on the chat window as well. Do let us know your thoughts on our sessions and our speakers today. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. It will be really helpful for us to improve any shortcomings or any glitches from our end. And once again, as a reminder, the recording of this event will be available on UNDP Malaysia's Facebook page over on Facebook. So with that, I do apologize for any shortcomings on our end. Hope to see you tomorrow, inshallah, at 3 p.m. Malaysia time. With that, my name is Aizuddin. I end my duty as MC for today. Wabillahi tawfiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
With new and diverse partnerships, the world can achieve sustainable development. Countries have already committed to making this happen through the Sustainable Development Goals. Each goal targets a specific area that needs improving, and they are all connected. But achieving the goals requires resources. $5 to $7 trillion needs to be raised each year. And countries are figuring out how to mobilize and use that money. The public sector is taking a whole-of-government approach, working across different ministries and actors. And the private sector is already contributing significantly to the SDGs. But more needs to be done. There can be challenges in aligning different sources of finance with the SDGs. So UNDP is helping to bring together public and private money behind sustainable development. We use 4 different approaches to do this. We map out the landscape and bring various actors to discuss targeted solutions. We advise on ways to remove blockages, build links, and redirect flows to sustainable development objectives. We help countries mobilize more money and leverage private finance for the SDGs. Working with governments and businesses, we ensure efficient and transparent management of resources for maximum impact. To benefit people, to protect the planet, and to bring prosperity for all.
The CIIF, the Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals, the premier professional body for qualified Islamic finance practitioners. Since 1963, the modern era of Islamic finance has rapidly grown to become a complete financial system with a full suite of products and services. As Islamic finance worldwide continues to grow, global demand for qualified talents becomes increasingly critical. To address this need, Bank Negara Malaysia has formulated a series of initiatives to boost human capital development in Islamic finance, including the need for setting professional standards. In its Financial Sector Blueprint 2011 to 2020, BNM identified the Association of Chartered Islamic Finance Professionals, ACIFP, to set global quality standards for professional qualifications. To realize its mandate, the ACIFP has transformed into the CIIF as part of its plan to be the global reference point for Islamic finance professionals. The CIIF will establish a platform for shaping high-caliber talents by setting globally recognized standards in professional qualifications. Together with our codes of ethics and professional conduct, the CIIF aims to shape the development of each member towards attaining recognition and prestige as a chartered professional in Islamic finance. As a chartered professional in Islamic finance, any member of the CIIF is expected to be ethically grounded, technically proficient, and above all, professionally driven. Attributes derived from the CIIF's key professional values. In achieving its vision to become the premier professional standard-setting body for qualified talents, the CIIF will be focused on three key strategic thrusts: supporting professional development through continuing education, upskilling, and specialization; global outreach initiatives to forge international linkages, foster collaborations in talent development, strengthen the linkage between industry and academia, and promote cross-border mobility for professionals. Achieving industry recognition through the adoption of the industry-owned Islamic Finance Profession Charter. Recognition of the CIIF's members by global financial institutions, industry authorities, regulators, education and training providers as the key players driving the halal economy. Through the CIIF, professionals in Islamic finance will have a platform to access expanded opportunities to serve the global Islamic finance industry. Through the CIIF, the talent pool will receive a much-needed boost in quality professionals to cater for a dynamic and ever-evolving global Islamic finance industry. Professional talents, global opportunities, knowledge, integrity, service. The Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals.
Introducing the Islamic Development Bank Centre of Excellence in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. A collaboration between ISDB and Malaysia for the benefit of all ISDB member countries. The ISDB Centre of Excellence in Kuala Lumpur supports the expansion of Islamic finance, halal industry, and science, technology and innovation across ISDB member countries and globally by leveraging reverse linkage and resources mobilization to capitalize on the expertise and resources of member countries. Moreover, the Centre of Excellence provides 1. Comprehensive ecosystem development solutions. 2. Value chain integration. 3. Investments and business matchmaking. 4. Access to finance, and ultimately supports the expansion of markets that work for development. Capitalizing on the advancement of Malaysia in Islamic finance, halal and SDI, and building on ISDB capabilities and global networks. The Centre facilitates the exchange of comprehensive development solutions, including know-how, technology, tools, and investments between Malaysia and other member countries, while ensuring a win-win approach. 5 flagship programs launched by the Centre of Excellence to be implemented during 2021 to 2023. 1. The Islamic Finance Promotion Programme. 2. Halal Industry Growth Programme. 3. SDI Acceleration Programme. 4. 2 support programs for reverse linkage and resources mobilization. Several strategic initiatives are under implementation, including the Islamic Finance Ecosystem Development Support, the establishment of Orcaf Properties Investment Fund in Malaysia, the scale-up of Islamic FinTech and Social Finance Solutions, Hajj Funds Development Support, Halal Ecosystem Development, supporting the development and production of halal vaccine, the scale-up of drones and agriculture technologies, and the launch of the e-Gateway as a virtual matchmaking platform between solutions providers and seekers in the Centre's focus areas. To know more, engage with the SDB Centre of Excellence in Kuala Lumpur.